is a very simple title. It's entitled Marrying for Money. Question is, where does this topic come into Parshas בחוקתי? So there is an interesting Chizkuni. Chizkuni is from the Kadmonim. The Chizkuni brings a pshat on the pasuk V'achaltem b'sar b'neichem. The pasuk in describing the horrors that unfortunately came true, in which b'shas the churban, women literally ate the flesh of their children. The Chizkuni offers a different pshat, and what does it mean? V'achaltem b'sar b'neichem. Yesh maforshim elu b'nei adam miyuchasim hamesiyin azaron lemishpacha she'ena higenes v'loichin mehen mos b'schar. When the pasuk says you'll eat the flesh of your children, doesn't mean literally. It's referring to families, b'nei adam miyuchasim, families that come from fine families, mishpachas with lineage, with yichus. And they marry off their children to families that are not proper, not a proper shidduch. So what would be the motivation for a upstanding, fine family to marry into a family that is eina miyuchas, that is not muhugin, that's not proper and fitting for them? Very simply, v'leichen mehen mos b'schar. And they take the money, which means what in effect they're doing is they're selling their children. They're apparently tight for money, and they need money somehow, so they, for the price, for marrying into such families, everybody has their price. For the right price, they make the shidduch. And that's what the pasuk means, V'achaltem b'sar b'neichem. You'll eat the flesh of your children. You will give your children over to families that they shouldn't be marrying into, and you will eat the money, and that's the pshat, V'achaltem b'sar b'neichem. That's how marrying for money comes into Parshas Baxukti. The truth of the matter is there is another connection. There's another connection between marrying for money, or the concept of marrying for money, and Parshas Baxukti. It's something that we mentioned last year. You all are familiar with one of the more famous Bali HaTesvos, the Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam, practically every other Tesis in Shas, or every fifth Tesis in Shas has in it the Rabbeinu Tam. Question is, why is the Rabbeinu Tam called Rabbeinu Tam? So the conventional wisdom that he's called Rabbeinu Tam is because his name was Rabbeinu Yaakov Tam, and we know that Yaakov Ish Tam Yeshev Aholim, so therefore they called Rabbi Yaakov, the Bali Tesis, Rabbeinu Yaakov Tam, Rabbeinu Tam. But I once heard that Rabbeinu Tam was called Rabbeinu Tam because in his day it was the practice that if a girl would marry, and as was the custom in those days, there would be the Eirison and the Nisuin. The Eirison actually being the marriage, but they would not live together sometimes for as long as a year. But once the Eirison occurred, she was a full-fledged Deishish. So in those days it was the custom that the parents of the bride had to put down a large dowry. So it happened apparently enough that it was scandalous that after the bride's parents would put down the money and they would give the money over at the time of the Eirison, and if something chas v'shalom would happen to the girl would die between the Eirison and the Nisuin. The chassan, the son-in-law, would keep the money. And people struggled and scraped together their entire lifetime to put together the dowry, and l'maisa the shidduch never came to fruition, and the guy would walk off with the money. So the Rabbeinu Tam said that this was a kiyum of the pasuk in this week's parsha, V'sam larik keichachem. which means that your efforts and toil will go for nothing. So the Rabbeinu Tam made a takana, and he was mavatal this minig, and he said that in such a situation where the girl died before the nisuin, the chassan, the son-in-law, the groom has to return the dowry. And therefore, since he was mavatal this minig, they called him the Rabbeinu Tam, as in V'sam l'rika chachem. Well, whether or not that is the real reason, it's certainly a unique pshat, and another reason for us to speak about the topic of marrying an isha for money in Parshas בחוקתי. The makar of the sugya Rabbi is a sugya Masechta Kedushin. The Gemara in Masechta Kedushin makes three similar statements. This is Daf Ayin Abad Aleph in Kedushin. Omar Rabba Bar Barchona Kol Haneise Isha She'ena Higenes Loi Malo Olav HaKosev Ki'ilu Charsh L'chai La'ilam Kuloi V'zorei Melech. If a person marries a woman, She'ena Higenes Loi, Ena Higenes Loi literally means a woman that is not fit for him. So if a man marries a woman who's not fit for him, it's as though he plowed up the soil of the earth and he sowed it with salt, thus rendering the earth unfit for growing crops. So, Kol Hanesi Isha She'ena Higenes Lo, if you marry a woman that's not fit for you, it's as though you literally make the land barren. The Gemara does not exactly define what does it mean, Isha She'ena Higenes Lo, a woman that's not fitting for him. Then there's another memra. Omar Ravada Bar Ava, Omar Ravada Bar Ava, Omar Rav Kol Hanese Isha L'Shumamayim, Havi Loi Bonim She'ena Mehuganim. If you marry a woman for her money, the einish will be that you will have children that are Eina Mehuganim, you will have children that are not fine people. That's the price that one pays for marrying a woman for her money. Kol Hanesi Isha L'Shem Mamayin, Havilei Barim She'ena Mehuganim. And how does the Gemara know this? So the Gemara darshans a pasuk in Hosea. Shenemar Ba'Hashem Bogdu, they were traitors against God. Ki Banim Zorim Yolodu, because they gave birth to foreign children. So the Gemara of Shema Taimar Mon and Palat, good, maybe your children won't turn out good, but at least you'll have the cash. Talmud Loimar, Atam Yoichle Chodesh Es Chalkeihem. You won't even have the cash. No kids, no cash. V'shema Taimar Chalkai V'lei Chalka. Maybe you'll say he'll lose his money, he'll lose the Nichsei Maluk, but at least the Nichsei Tzayin Barzel that belongs to her, that will remain. Talmud Lemer Chel Kehem. No, all the money's going to be gone. Her money, his money, they're going to lose all the cash. V'shema Taimer Lizman Meruba. Well, maybe you'll at least have the use of the money, for a good 25, 30 years. You can at least pay off the mortgage. It's Vert Epis. Talmud Loimar Chodesh, my mashma, Amar Vinza Chodesh, Chodesh Nichnas V'Chodesh Yet. Within a month, the money's going to be gone. That's what happens to a person who marries a woman for her money. His children don't turn out to be right, and to boot, he loses the money. One final memra, Amar Rav Hamnuna, Kol Hanesi Isha She'ena Higenes Lai, a person that marries a woman that's not fit for him, Elio Kaifsai, V'HaKadosh Baruch Hu Reitzai. Elio binds him up, and the Rebbe Shalom gives him nakis, the Rebbe Shalom gives them lashes. Three memras in the Gemara. What is the definition of Isha She'ena Higenes Lai? Where does the problem of Neise Isha L'Shum Mamayin, where does that apply? So Rashi is unequivocal in the sugya, and Rashi says over here, Eina Higenes Psulolai. That this entire sugya is speaking about you marry a woman who's puzzled to you. Meaning, you marry a woman who's a psulei kohol, a mamzeres, a nesina, a shivcha krainis, a nosin, a stuki, an asufi, all these different types of psulim That's what we're talking about, Isha She'ena Higenes Lei. But if you marry a fine, upstanding woman, and you marry her for her money, this Gemara does not apply. As they learned Rashi the Sugya, marrying a woman for her money, this is not what this, when she's kosher, which means she's a Yisraelis. There's no psul yuchsin. There's nothing wrong with it, at least according to this Gemara, the way Rashi learns this Gemara. This is indeed the Shita of the Tshuvas Harivosh. Very interesting Tshuva for the Shas Tshuvas Harivosh, Siman Tesvav. Listen to the following Shaila that the Rivosh was asked. Roisi Sheilaschem al Dvar Ha'ish an Shmuel Aroma. A guy's name, he says the name of this person. What was the problem? Sharoitza Lisa Zakena. So this guy wants to marry an older woman. How old is an older woman, you ask? Vas Tishim Shana. She's 90 years old. True love knows no age limits. He almanas somebody or another who he mentions the name. She was a wealthy widow, a wealthy old widow. When you see a whole different society. The Shtut didn't want to let him do it. The Kohol didn't want to let this guy marry a 90-year-old woman. Surprise. He wasn't marrying her for the sake of marrying her. He wanted her money. What was her money? She has 80 kfulei shel zahav. What exactly kfulei shel zahav are? I don't know whether it means she has 80 gold necklaces or she has 80, it's a measurement. Whatever it is, anyway, the woman has money. V'oid she'ein lo banim. And he doesn't have any children. So here he's marrying a 90-year-old woman for her money, and at this point he has no children. V'an Shmuel hanizkar, and this guy Tainus, he tiach dvarim keneged hadayin v'ktsas b'nei hakol, and this guy goes ahead and says to them, At shaholach lo adayin ha'ir. So he goes to the adayin ha'ir, which means he goes to the authority, the guy who ruled the city. Again, in the Rivosh's time, you had a person that we're not talking about an elected mayor with a prestigious city council like we have here in Baltimore, Maryland, but we have a guy that literally ruled the state. And he says, these Jews aren't letting me marry this woman. And I can't figure out why they object to this shit. They were telling, she's too old, you shouldn't marry her. This has nothing to do with Torah. This has nothing to do with Yiddishkeit. This has nothing to do with Yahadus. Where does it say in the Torah you can't marry a 90-year-old woman? State this. They said no, can't be Yisrael, that a guy marries a woman who's 90 years old for her money. To make a long story short, the city, the Kohol, the mayor, and the Anshemuel all agreed to send a shala to the Rivosh for the Rivosh to paskin. So the Rivosh says, that contrary to what this guy is timing, that it doesn't say anywhere in the Torah that you can't marry a 90-year-old woman, that's not true. Because the halacha is that if a person was not Mekayim period of Arivya, if a person hasn't had children, if he hasn't had a boy and a girl, then he's not allowed to marry a woman she'ena bas bonim. He's not allowed to marry a woman who is incapable of having children. If he had had children already, it would be a different issue. But that's why this was a factor. He hadn't been Mekayim Peri V'Rav yet. He wants to marry a woman that is not going to have children, not at 90 years old, unless a miracle happens. But she would make the Guinness Book of Records at 90 years old. So she's not going to have any children. And he says it's not true that Beis Din doesn't enforce such things. The halacha is, we spoke about this in Shir once, the halacha is, Hanaisi Isha V'Sha Yimoi Eser Shanim V'Lo Yolda Kaifen Eser L'Haitzi. The halacha is that if a person is married to a woman for 10 years and they're not, unfortunately, Loyalenu, not Zecha to children, so then the halacha is Kaifen Eser L'Haitzi, Azei Shteiken Din. So you see that Beis Din intervenes the Makayim that there's something improper with the shidduch. And therefore, Zok the Rivash, the Kahal had a halachic leg to stand on. There was halachic precedence over here. Over Zok the Rivash, that may be true, but today, Zok the Rivash and Azei Shteiken Din, Beis Din does not intervene into such shidduchim. The halacha of Shah, Yimo Eser Shanim V'Lo Yolda, if a person married for 10 years, which we spoke about, Beis Din does not enforce that din. Not only do they not enforce that din, but they don't enforce any dinim when it comes to shidduchim. The halacha is a bas Talmid Chacham shouldn't marry an Amoritz, or a Talmid Chacham shouldn't marry the daughter of an Amoritz. And halacha is that they shouldn't get married. He spoke to Rivash, if Beis Din is going to krich harayin and to intervene in all of the shidduchim in which the Gemara says that this is not a good shidduch, he says Beis Din's not going to have enough time in the day to adjudicate all these different cases. And Beis Din has its hands full, Rivash writes, when two people come to them because they can't get along and they want to get divorced. But the truth is, as the Rivash writes over here, the only time Beis Din in fact intervenes into a shidduch and forces the people to divorce is when it is a shidduch that involves an isser. For instance, a kohen marrying a grusha, or situations where the pshat is a bona fide isser. But where Chazal say you shouldn't do this, it's not a good idea, it's not a good practice. Amoritz to a be'eshes, bas Talmid Chacham to an Amoritz, etc. We don't enforce these halachas bismanas. The reason given is because this is speaking hundreds of years ago, the Azei Shteiken Din, but it's true even today, but to a much lesser extent. But especially, Jews' lives were so tenuous. They were living in Golis, they were living in times of persecution. It was so hard to come by a shidduch. So people got married and they had children, fine, leave them alone. So it's not the most glamorous or perfect shidduch that there is. As long as it's not an Isser, person doesn't krich haray. And therefore, v'lachein benidin shel ifnechem im chazaka hi nichal im hazakena hi nichal adelepik al ashma deishus v'shiyel abal b'makom haben. If this old lady wants a son rather than a husband, chutru leyara umar lekvura, literally someone to take care of her. Umatzah zeh writes the lisa im de doichkai ve'en lebanim im tutz im tirtzu lahalim enechem kasher naranok b'harbe kehilas gedolos v'toyves mois chachamim harashus b'yedchem. If you want to look the other way, gesundheit. You don't have to break this shidduch up. Zok terazeh. That's only dealing with the issue that how is a person who hasn't been Mekayim Piri Verivya, how is he allowed to marry a 9-year-old woman? But what about the issue of Naisei Isha L'Shem Mamain? He shouldn't marry a woman for her money. Zok the Rivash Mefurish. But Kimasha Amru Hanais Yish L'Shem Maman Havi Le'Barim Shein Mehuganim Zehu B'Isha Shehi Psul Olai Kinamaisi Ala Kra B'Hashem Bogdu Kiparim Zorim Zorim Yolai V'chein Pirish Rashi. So the Rivash comes down clearly on the side of Rashi. The only problem of marrying a woman for her money is only when it's an Isha Psul Olai. There's something wrong halachically, mamzeres, nesina, etc. But when it's stam, you marry a woman, there's nothing wrong with the shidduch, there's no Easter, it's only for her money, that the Gemara is not talking about. So as they state in Rivash and as they state in Rashi. On the other side of the equation, however, is the shita of the Rav Achai Gaon. The Rav Achai Gaon, one of the Gaonim, in Parshas Vayera, in the Shilta Mem Aleph, the Rav Achai Gaon writes as follows: Kol hanaising isha l'shum mamayim, quoting the Gemara, marrying a woman for her money. But then the Shiltas adds the words Heicha Dolay Mahagna Lei, where she's not haguna for him. Havi Leibanim Shein Mehuganim. So the Netziv, in his classic Perish on the Shiltas, the Hemek Sheila, the Netziv says, what is the Shiltas adding by these words? A woman that's not fit for him? Zok the Netziv, the Pshat in the Shiltas is, she's Eina Hogenes Loi, Zok the Netziv, Kegain, Anaisei Bas Am Ha'aretz. Das heißt that the Eina Hogenes Loi doesn't mean a Psulei Kohol. It means when it's not a proper shidduch. Like a Bas Am Ha'aretz. The Loi Roi Bishvi Loi. That's what the Shiltis is adding by those words. Va'isikein Biglal Mamain, Al Zenemar Shahava Leibanim Shenim Mehugadim. And the Netziv brings a compelling raya to the Shita of the Rav Achai Gaon as opposed to Shitas Rashi. Because according to Shitas Rashi, that Kol Hanoisi Isha L'Shem Mamen, Havilei Barim Shenim Mehugadim, if you marry a woman for her money, you're not going to have good kids. According to Rashi, it's speaking about who are you marrying. You're marrying a mamzeres, a nesina, a shivcha. What are you talking about? Havilei Barim Shenim Mehugadim. You're going to have kids that aren't Mehugad. You're going to have a mamzer. What's the chiddush of the Gemara? Frek the Netziv, the Lapirish Rashi Kosher, my Kamashmulan, but my Darsh, Havalei Barim Shenem Hugadim. Pshita, Hahelchen B'Psul Acher Shneim. The Kvar Nafkale Mei Oiraisa de Moshe. You don't need a Rav Ada Bar Ava to tell you that if you marry a woman who's a mamzeres for her money, you're going to have not good kinder. For Stetzach, you're going to have not good children. You're going to have mamzerim on your hands. What do I need Rav Ada Bar Ava to tell me that? It's a halach in the Torah. Avolafi Rabbeinu. But according to the Shiltas, according to Rav Achai, Kamash Mulan, Sheyolida Bonim Zorim, Chachais Ha'erech Ba'amei Ha'aretz Shaloi Lefi Chvaydai Ba'havilei Zorim Imenu. That's what it means, Bonim Zorim. Bonim Zorim. Which means I'm going to marry a woman who's a daughter of Anam Ha'aretz, a woman who has absolutely no appreciation for Torah. Women have a greater role in the raising and upbringing of children than men. She's not going to raise them al derech ha-Torah. I'm going to have for children that don't appreciate Torah, children that are maratzim. They're going to be foreign to me because I won't be able to speak the same language to them. I'm interested in Torah. They're interested in who knows what. Therefore, Zoktan Netziv, that's why he holds that the Shiltis is more meduyik in the Gemara than Rashi. But the upshot of this, Rabbi Isai, is that according to the Shiltis, we have extended the reach of the Gemara that anytime you marry a woman for her money. If the shidduch is in a proper shidduch in the sense that you shouldn't be marrying such a woman, not chas v'shalom that there's something wrong, it's an isser. It's ein ha'hygenis loy. According to the shultas, havilei barim she'enim mehuganim. And similarly, Rabbi Say, we see the same thing from a Ravid, the Beis Yosef. And Simon Samach Vov quotes an Orchas Chaim, who quotes a Ravid, V'zel l'shaynai, Nohadu shaloi litein od labitei momen gadol. The Ravid says it's not a good idea to give your daughter a lot of money before she gets married. Why? And a person that gets into fights and arguments over money with his prospective family, eino matzliach. The shidduch is not going to be a good shidduch if they start arguing about money. Whatever your parents, whatever your in-laws give you, you should take with a smile, be happy with whatever they give you, and fine. Because if you're just taking the money, that's not momen shal yosher, that's not straight money. And he continues. Any person who has any seichel, he should not remain a bachelor. Nor should he hold up the prospective shidduch with his prospective mate because of momen, mibnei momen rav, shahamomen ahu lo yatzliach mibnei ho'igun mibnei hir her avera. Meaning that if you're delaying getting married because you want more money, and as a result of that you remain single, and remaining single is not a good state to be in, mibnei hir her avera, because of the necessary or the attendant problems that surround being single for too long. Therefore, nichsholim ba'averes kshenim neis isha b'mheira v'aleim nemar kol haneis isha l'shum momen havin le'banim shenim hoganim. Zok the Orchas Chaim in the name of the Ravid that delaying to get married when you had the opportunity to do so for the sake of momen, and that is where it is said, Kol hanesi ish l'shem momen havilei barim shenim mehuganim. So this Ravid and Orchas Chaim is saying, again, extending the reach of Kol hanesi ish l'shem momen much wider. It doesn't mean eino hageres lo. Means that if you have the opportunity to get married and you want more money, and as a result of that you don't get married, that's called Naisi Isha L'Shumama in Havilei Barim Shenim Mehuganim. So we have Rabbi over here a very clear-cut, stark machlokes. Rashi and the Rivash on one hand hold that this whole sugi of marrying a woman for money, that a person's not going to have good children as a result of that, is only speaking when you're marrying a woman who there is some kind of aveira involved in the shidduch, isha psulaloi. The Ramachai Gon and the Orchas Chaim and the Ravid hold that no. It applies even when it's not a good shidduch, even if it's like a bas ha'maharetz. Even if you're delaying the shidduch for money purposes, that's also the rule applies. So, now that you know the machlokes, you have it clearly in front of you. What do you think the halacha is like? Do we paskin like Rashi and the Rivash that only if it's isha psulaloi, or do we say there's a much broader interpretation and we hold like the Orchas Chaim and the Ravid? So the Ramah in Shulchan Aruch Even HaEzer Siman Beis Sif Aleph, the Ramah rules as follows: Kol haneisei isha psula mishum mamain. If a person marries an isha psula mishum mamain, havi eloi banim she'enan mehuganim. If you marry a woman psula for her money, then you're going to have children that aren't good. without that factor, she'eina psula alone, there is no psul, ela shenaisi mishum mamain mutter. Tshuvas harivash. The Ramah comes down clearly and unequivocally, apparently, on the side of the Rivash and Rashi, that you can be a gold digger, you can marry a woman for her money, as long as she's not an Isha Psula, no problem whatsoever. But let me quote you the end of the Ramah. In-laws that promised a lot of money for a shidduch, and they changed their mind. Lo ya'agid kalosai mishum zeh. You should not delay the shidduch. You should get married anyway. V'lo yiskaite bavur nichsa yishtay. And you shouldn't fight over money. Umisha oise keineinu matzliach. And if you delay the shidduch over money, einay zivugai leyafe. Ki hamamen sha'adam lekeach yimishtay einay mamen shal yisher v'chal ha'ise kein mikri naise yisha l'shem mamain. If you delay the shidduch for money, that's called naise yisha l'shem mamain. Habilei barim she'enay mehugadim. Frak the chelkas machaykek, as does the Beis Shmuel. The Ramah went to here in this stark machlekes between the Rivash on one hand, the Orchos Chaim on the other. The Ramah paskin both of them. How can you do that? We made it as clear as day. It's a diametrically opposed machlekes. The Rashi and the Rivash said that the only time there's a problem with marrying a woman for her money is she's an Isa Psululai. That's what the Ramah said in the beginning of the Ramah. Then the Ramah turns around at the end of the Ramah, says that if you hold up the shidduch because they're not giving you the right amount of money, that's called Hanaysi Ish L'Shum Mamayt. Make up your mind. Azay frek the chelkes b'chaykik. Zoch the chelkes b'chaykik, v'zel l'shaynai, af al gav divnei zeh kol she'ein psula olav mutter, lisa mishum mamayin. Even though the Ramah just got finished saying that if the woman is not puzzle, if there's no problem, there's no isser in marrying her, there's no problem with marrying her for her money. Hainu im naisnei mamen baratzen hatayv, aval agin kalase bishvil zeh. To hold up the shidduch for that, oy la'agin es atzmai, or to remain a bachelor for that, ulahamtin milisa isha ad sheyimtze isha shetita le'mamen, aser. So what does this chalkas mechaykik mean? So what I think he means is as follows. La halacha, there is nothing wrong with marrying a woman for her money, as long as there is no aveira involved whatsoever. If the woman is not puzzled to you, and you're marrying her for her money, no problem. If the woman is puzzled and there's an aveira, it's called naisi yisha l'shem mamayin. Similarly, if you have a situation where holding out for money involves an aveira, meaning you have a girl in front of you, you've already been maskim to marry her. The shidduch can go through, you can be married next week. And because of money, you delay marrying her, you break the shidduch, and therefore you hold out longer and you remain single longer with the attendant problems of Hirhuri Aveira that are part parcel of being single. But you're doing this, why? For money? So what you are in effect doing is you're compromising, you're doing not overtly or not consciously or not perhaps bemazed, but the fact of the matter is you're remaining single, which is not a good state to be in. And as a result of that, you are putting yourself in a matzav where there can be aveiros. Then already it's called naisi yisha l'shem mamayin, because you are willing to compromise on your principles, or compromise or cut corners with some aveiros for money. So therefore, if the Lamaisa, they present to you two shidduchim, and you could go out with either of them, and they're both kosher, and you have the ability to marry either of them right away, and you pick one over the other because she has money, that's not called Naisa Isha L'Shem Mamay. But if, for instance, the shidduch is ready to go and everything is fine and everybody has been masking and it can happen tomorrow, except, they sort of fudged on the money part of it, and as a result of that, you want to stop it, you want to delay. So now you're putting yourself in a situation where you're ma'agenis atzma, you're remaining single longer than you have to. Then, Zokti Archas Chayim, that's a problem of Naisa Isha L'Shem Mamay. Azay is Machriya. That's how the Chalchas Mechaykik is Miyashiv Rashi. Meaning, again, all things being equal, when there's no Aveira whatsoever involved, and you're Naisa Isha L'Shem Mamay, that's not what the Gemara is talking about. At least not L'Halacha L'Maisa. But where there is an Aveira involved, meaning you're not marrying the right type of shidduch, it's an Isha Psulaloi, or you're Ma'aginis Atzmai, you're delaying too long for money, which can cause Aveiras, then that's a problem of Naisa Isha L'Shem Mamay. Azay is the Chalkes Mechaykik Machriya. I just want to end with three other points. As usual, there's a very interesting Rabbeinu Yehuda Chassid here. We don't have a clear psak from the Rabbeinu Yehuda Chassid, but nevertheless, it's a very interesting case. A man married a woman that he really didn't want to marry. Narvos, why did he marry her? He married her for her money, but he really didn't want to marry her. So when he got married, he made two brachas. He made Hatay v'Hameitiv, because he just came into a lot of money. Ubeirach Dayin ha'emes. What a way to start a marriage. Under the chuppah you make Baruch Dayin emes. Why do you make Baruch Dayin emes? Shehiz min lo isha shalai kecheftzai, because he's marrying a woman that he doesn't really want to marry. Ubaruch Dayin emes lo ilacha baratzon ela machmas daichkai. I have to marry her. So that's what he did. So Rabbi Yehuda Chassid Amrulai Ubarach. So why did he make Hatay v'Hameitiv? Ubarach Hatay v'Hameitiv Shnei Slei Momen Harbe. There is halachic precedence to this. To make Hatay v'Hameitiv and Dayin emes, that's not simultaneously, but we're one after the other. The Gemara tells us in Brachos one of the most poignant halachas, I think, in all of Yiddishkeit, that a person hears that his father died, lo yoleinu, he has to make two brachas. He has to make Dayin emes that his father died. He has to make a teva meitiv that he got the Yerusha. So this guy says the same thing. I married this woman. Teva meitiv, I'm getting the money. Dayin emes that I'm stuck with her. Amrulai. So they said to him, it's no tzushtal to that case. So what kind of tzushtal is this? When a person's father dies, that's not up to him. That's up to Shamayim. They take away a person's father. That's the Rebbe Shalom. Baruch Hatay v'Hameitiv, Baruch Dayin emes. Over you, nobody did this to you. You did this to yourself. A guy bangs his head against the wall. You know what I mean? Or so he makes a Baruch Dayin emes because you did it to yourself. You make a Dayin emes? So what did he say? He says, no. It's exactly like the case of the father dying. Amar dikduke aniyas gormuli. No, it's the same thing. Because I'm doing this because I'm broke. I'm doing this because I need the money. I'm doing this is because also God has put me in this situation because I need the money. And on top of that, this is God's doing. V'gam al pi ha'gzeira ki arba'im yoyim kodim yitziras avlad machrisin eza isha le'ish. This is bashert. It's just as bashert as a person dying. L'chach birachti baruch dayan emes. So the Rabbeinu Yehuda Chassid does not comment who's right over here, even though Libi Yomerli that he wasn't right. But it's an interesting hamtzah. The last thing that I would like to share with you, and this is something that I adopted the custom every Parshas Chayisara in the yeshiva. When I say the Chumash Shir to the Bochum, I always read over this Rabbeinu Bachai in Parshas Chayisara. The Rabbeinu Bachai writes that Al Kein Hukva B'Yisrael Minig Likrei Parsha Zu L'Chasen B'Yem Chasunasai. The Rabbeinu Bachai writes that the Parsha in Parshas Chayisara, the story of Yitzchok, of Eliezer going to find a mate for Yitzchok, they used to read that over to the Chasen B'Yem Chasunasai. Meaning you come into the Kabbalas Ponim. In those days, rather than just munching on franks and blankets, they used to read over the Parsha of Chayisara. Why? Lahaskir ha'am she'yizoher b'nisuin. To warn the people how important it is, the whole Parsha of Zivuk. Shelo yikach isha l'shem yaifi. You shouldn't marry a girl for her looks. Shaharei hakosuf oimer sheker hachein vehevel hayefi. V'shaloi l'shem mamayin. Nor should you marry a woman for her money. Why? Ki hamamen asa yase loy kanafayim kanesher ya'uf hashamayim. Because money has this strange ability. It flies away. Money has wings. And if the whole reason that you married this woman is because of the money, so when the money will be gone, as many times happens, what are you going to be left with? Below l'shem sroras hakroivim u'bnei mishpachais she'yenezer behem v'yuchal lihistar. Nor should you marry for power. Now, sometimes you marry into a family, it's a powerful family. No, you can get ahead in the world. You shouldn't do that either. A person has to marry for the right reasons, and to marry into a good family. Very, very important, Rabbeinu Bachai. Children have a tendency to follow the mother. Children take after the mother. And in a very, very simple but powerful image, which some people may object to, but kikein teva hayayin liyes tam nimshach acher hakli asher omat b'seichai. Because wine tastes like the barrel in which it is stored. And therefore, children follow the teva of the mother. So say Zokter Rabbeinu Bachai. So even though Rabbi say, Hanaisi Isha L'Shumomayin, Hamile Barim Shenim Hugadim, halachically speaking, halacha l'maisa, if there's nothing wrong with the shidduch, there are no averis involved in the shidduch, the Gemara doesn't apply, but nevertheless, it is an eitz taiva that a marriage should not be made based on money alone. Now, that said, there's nothing wrong with marrying someone that does have, in fact, money. Nothing wrong with them. But If that is the basis for the entire relationship, then there is something wrong with that, because if the money will be gone, the relationship will be gone. So that Rabbi Isai is the bottom line. In fact, we didn't have time, but there's a Tshuva Shvus Yankiv and Chela Gimel Siman Kuf Lamed Hey that says this explicitly, and he said, as it says in Parshas Bechuktai, Ufanisi Aleichem, this is Perik Chavav Pasuk Tes, Ufanisi Aleichem, V'yifreisi Yeschem, V'yirbeisi Yeschem, V'hakimaisi Esprisi Yitchem. And I will turn unto you, and I will make you plentiful and multiply you, and I will keep my bris, my covenant with you. It's a strange Rashi, which we have discussed in past years. Rashi says, Upanisi aleichem, afane mikol asakai, l'shalem scharchem, l'shalem scharchem. Rashi says, "Afana mikol asakar l'shalom scharchem." What does the pasuk mean? Ufanisi aleichem. I will turn unto you. So Rashi says, "Afana mikol asakai," which means I will turn away from all my other involvements, and I will concentrate l'shalom scharchem, to give you your just reward. So the problem with this Rashi is this gives the impression that the Ribbon Shalom is a very busy CEO. And he's having a very busy day, and his desk is cluttered, and the phone is ringing off the hook, and his appointment book is filled, and people are bothering him the whole day, and he's snowed under. And then some mala comes into the Rebbe Shalom and says, you got to pay off this fellow. So the Rebbe Shalom buzzes his secretary, buzzes the mala, says, hold my calls. Clears my desk, cancel all the appointments for the rest of the day, so I can concentrate. Ufanisi aleichem, so I can turn my attention to you, so to speak, in order to pay you off. Now that may be the case by the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. No matter how good a chief executive he is, but people are only human and they can only handle so many things at once. So the concept of clearing the desk so I can concentrate upon Isi Aleichem, that exists. But the Rebbeinu Shalom, who's mamish Seiker Kol Olam B'Skira Achas, the whole concept is not shayach by the Rebbeinu Shalom. So what does it mean, Ufanisi Aleichem? So I want to say something over a little differently than we've said in the past years from Rav Elia Meir Bloch. So a lot of time in world events, when we witness world events, we realize that there are ramifications of world events. For instance, the mashal that he gives. This is a person that lived through World War I, World War II. So when there's wars, so there's tremendous displacements of people. So you can have a city, especially during the war, there was constant going back and forth between countries. You can have a city that was a thriving city. But as the advancing soldiers came on the city, so the whole city had to evacuate. You see this also today, like, in Africa, all these hundreds of thousands of refugees, they go from one city to the next city. So you could have a city that was thriving, that was a thriving city, but because of the advancing armies, the whole city in total had to go across the border to a different city. Now, there's a fellow in that different city, in another city that owns a grocery store. Or that owns a blanket store. And all of a sudden, hundreds and thousands of people that before didn't need his blankets, all of a sudden, they need his blankets. So they come in by the dozens, by the hundreds, by the thousands, and he's making a landmine business in blankets. Or any other commodity that you can imagine. So this person gets rich as a result of the war. So how do we view this? We view this as that the main event over here is the war. Countries go to fight, global politics, global, it's not cosmic, but global events which have ramifications to individuals, sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. So we view it as God's in charge of the world. He's making these countries go to war because God has an interest in these countries fighting each other. It happens to be that as a ramification, as a peri-peris, as a much, as a down the road ripple effect, it happens to affect the person that he should become a gvir because of that. Yissocher Frand, we never know what is the ikar and what is the tafel. We think that the main event is the fight between the two countries. But maybe it is because the Ribbon Shalom has decided that some person has to make a fortune, or some person has to lose a fortune. And as a result of that, the Ribbon Shalom has countries or nations or groups go to war against each other for the express purpose of making this person either wealthy or poor. That's what the pasuk means. Ufanisi aleichem. I will turn my attention to you. Means that I can control, I will shape world events. Sometimes for the express purpose of Ufanisi aleichem. I have to give you your schar. And for that I can literally turn the world upside down. This week I was at a chasana of a bocher in my shir that married a girl from Uzbekistan. So I was thinking to myself at the chasana that because of something that happened in 1990, i.e. the fall of the Iron Curtain and the breakup and the dissolution of the Soviet Union, that's what made this shidduch possible. Because if things would have gone along as they were going for the last 70 years, the chances of a girl from Uzbekistan marrying a bocher from New Jersey, I mean, don't bet on that one. And yet, that's what happened. I said at the chasana, if someone would have gone to this boy's parents, 20 years ago and said, your son's going to marry a girl from Uzbekistan, they would say, where's Uzbekistan? And vice versa, they would have gone to her parents and say, you're going to marry a boy from New Jersey. Where's New Jersey? But world events, the breakup of the Soviet Union, facilitated the marriage between this bocher and this girl. The question is, what is the chicken and what is the egg? What is the sibra and what is the mesayvev? What is the ikar and what is the tafel? That's the question. That's the question. And perhaps it is a stretch to say that the entire Soviet Union dissolved because this girl from Tashkent had to marry this guy from New Jersey. But it is is not a stretch to say, perhaps, that because Yidden had to go to Eretz Yisrael, and it wasn't going to happen as the way things were, that's why the Soviet Union dissolved. We don't know. We don't know what's the ik and what's the tafel, but this pasuk informs us that the Rebbe Shalom Kaviyachol is saying over here, Ufanisi Aleichem, meaning you think that I'm up there controlling world events. I'm moving mountains and I'm having countries fight against each other, and I'm doing all these things, these global events, because that's my job. God says that's my job. My job is to take care of the world. No, that's not only his job. Ufanisi Aleichem. He has to make sure that somebody makes a parnasa. He has to make sure that someone gets rich. He has to make sure that someone finds the right shidduch. And as a result of that, Ufanisi Aleichem, clear my desk from all the other stuff. That's the tafel. Ufanisi Aleichem, I will turn to you. I will give my full attention. I will move mountains. I will cause disasters. I will cause windfalls. Why? In order to hifreisi eschem, hirbeisi eschem, v'hakimeisi esprisi itchem.
This year was presented by Rav Yissocher Frand Shlita.